From Mother Emanuel to Unity to the Confederate Flag to Walter Scott, North Charleston Mayor Keith Summey opens up to me in an exclusive interview for Quintin's Close-Ups. Well, Mayor Summey, it's been a while since I've actually seen you.
Absolutely. Good to see you again.
Yes, sir.
Always a pleasure.
Same here. There's a lot to talk about, actually, because first and foremost, I want to talk about the Public Works Complex. As you know, last Thursday, you guys unveiled that.
Yes, it is unbelievable. One of the things that we have tried to do with the facility we're in today here at City Hall, and that facility, and even our new fire stations, when we build something, we want to build it for 100 years.
Yeah.
I sort of learned that when the Navy base closed.
Yeah.
And, you know, those of us who were private citizens never got much of a chance to tour and visit the naval facility. And I saw buildings that were built in the 20s and 30s, that even shops that were so historically preserved in the way they looked, they just spoke volumes about the building. And then in the late 30s, early 40s, when the World War II era came along, we started building metal buildings, and they look horrible today. And so if we're going to build a building for the people, then we need to make sure we do it so it lasts a long time.
Yes.
Our public works employees have been working in the same building since we became a city. And you got to remember, when we started, we were probably at 35,000 people. Today we're 125,000. And the number of employees have drastically increased. The amount of equipment that has to be maintained and what have you, and we just didn't have the proper facilities to do it. For our engineers, offices were horrible, and so we built this facility. We've actually got one wing of it that's not being utilized in the office areas, and we've got room for expansion in the shop areas as well, because we want to invest today that will last 100 years, and when that investment is paid for, it won't be a need to pay for it for another 70 years again.
And I'm wondering, when you first took a tour of that complex, what was the first thing that you actually told yourself?
We have done something that we as a city and we as the people of the city can be proud of. I actually sent invitations to mayors of other cities if they would like to come and look at it, because it is the probably most state-of-the-art public works facility in the Southeast.
I agree. The EmanuelAME.
Horrible. You know, Chris Singletary works for us during the summer.
Oh, okay.
And he also plays ball for us. And, you know, and to watch the love that came out of all of the families that were involved, I think it was a lesson for all of us to look inwardly at ourselves. I was at St. Peter's AME Church this past Sunday, and the pastor spoke on the scripture where it talks about doing good and doing evil, and it's easier a lot of times to do evil. But in life, we're supposed to do good. And I think EmanuelAME Church and those 9 families have set a pattern for the world to follow. And I think as a community, we came together and handled it appropriately. And I think it was something that will go down in history as being a turning point for learning to love each other a little more.
That's right. And I want to take you back to June 17th, because I was at home on my bed. I was just playing on Twitter, and I got the devastating news about 9 shot at EmanuelAME Church. And I couldn't believe that was the information that I heard. And I wanted to immediately get out there and just throw it down there, because I live right down there. I'm wondering, where were you when you got the news? And when you got the news, what did you tell yourself?
I was at my house, and I got a phone call from our police department saying that it was reported that there were 9 deaths in the church while church was going on. And like you, I wanted to immediately go down and see if it was anything I could do. but I realized that I probably would get in the way. And so I actually took the time to pray about what was going on and kept in touch with our agency to make sure we were offering anything that we could to help them. I think as a community and as agencies in the area, the response was professional.
Yes.
And I was proud of the way we responded, although I was saddened by what had happened.
And talk about people circulating that picture of that murderer, and they caught him 12 hours later.
Oh, absolutely. It shows the system works.
Yeah.
And I think it was a demonstration of how evil people thought the act was.
It was. Yeah.
And, you know, when people go into church, they expect to be at peace. They go there to get comfort, to get peace. And for somebody to violate that and come in and sit and be welcomed and then do something. I think somebody told me in one of his things he taught with the agency afterwards, he said the people were so nice to him he almost didn't do it.
Wow.
You know, such a sick individual.
He is, very much so.
But while we're on that, let me say I disagree with the fact that the U.S. Justice Department now, U.S. Attorney's Office or whatever, is asking that the local governments, no, this is another one.
Okay, no worries, no worries.
It was another one where this was the guy that shot the mama last New Year's and then shot another one, didn't kill her. Another mother got killed, and they're wanting to hold it to a federal charge at no more than 40 years. They don't ask. I think he deserves life or death, one of the two.
The Confederate flag, you know, I was at home when I saw the big press conference, and to me it was like the who's who of Charleston there. Take me back down memory lane and tell me what memories play back in your mind when you think of that day.
Knowing that you're going to immediately turn some people off, and they can credit it to history or whatever they want. The bottom line was the flag had become even more a symbol of lack of peace between races. And it needed to come down. It didn't need to be, if somebody wants to have a picture of the flag in their home, that's their right. But to put it on a public facility, and when part of the public is harassed by the fact that it's there, is wrong.
It is.
And it needed to come down. It needed to, I think, stay down. I was glad to see the other reactions that are happening now. Saw in the paper yesterday where one of the reenactments has been canceled.
Oh yes.
And I think people are seeing. Nobody is trying to deflate history.
Right.
But there are a lot of people, white folks from the South, that only participated in the war because they were poor. Their mentality was not that against their black brothers that they worked in the fields with, but they were led to believe it was about economics. And instead of in trying to do away with your way of life, instead of being about doing good, being wrong in the way we treat each other.
Another controversial issue was Dr. Jarita Postway. A lot of people complained that, you know, that particular decision was not ideal because she really got a fair deal. And then, of course, race and, you know, the EmanuelAME played into that. And I believe that you weren't too happy with that decision as well.
I spoke out about it because I felt that the timing was extremely bad. I do think that there was a perception in the general public that there had been some interviews that occurred prior to shortlisting.
Right.
And I also think, here's the way I work. If I've got somebody in-house that's capable of doing the job, I don't advertise.
Oh, okay.
So if you've got somebody that's in the final three in the consideration process, you're automatically saying that all three are qualified. And if one of them already works for you, I think it can be an ego hurt to not just that employee, but other employees that are trying to grow within the organization. I support her completely because I will work to make sure our schools get what they need. So I will support her.
That was my next question.
My issue was more with the way the board handled it, nothing to do with her.
Okay. Something else too that was controversial was Walter Scott. Obviously, he was shot multiple times by a former North Charleston police officer after a scuffle that took place near the Advanced Auto Parts store in April. You basically said that about Slager, that is, when you're wrong, you're wrong.
And that's in everything in life. And quite honestly, I think those of us in leadership in the city felt sort of the same that we would have felt if our child had gotten in trouble. But when you step over that line, you have to answer for it.
Yeah.
And when we saw the video, automatically we knew what needed to be done.
Yeah.
And that's the right thing. And that's why we have supported the body cameras. We want to do what's right, but sometimes there's not enough evidence to warrant taking any action. With the video, it gave us, and I think we responded accordingly the way it should have been done. There are people who disagree.
Oh, yes.
And we know that, but that's fine. At the end of the day, each of us have to look in the mirror when we're washing our face at night before we go to bed, and look and see if I can live with the person I see in that mirror.
Right.
And so I think that I've made mistakes, but I've always, if I made them, they were honest mistakes based upon what I thought was the right thing to do.
And I want to go back to those days when you guys had the press conference. I saw people yelling and screaming like, we want Eddie Triggers, we want Eddie Triggers. Let me ask you this. What was it like to be, and I want you to take off your political hat, but what was it like to be Keith Summey during those days after this particular controversy and death of Walter Scott?
Well, I really, and this is maybe hard to believe, I didn't have time to be Keith Summey. I had to be Keith Summey mayor, and I had to look at all the elements surrounding it. I can tell you, nobody was more disappointed than me, any more than the chief was. The chief is a God-fearing man.
He is.
He loves people, and he likes things to be done that are right. And so he was hurt, and I think you could tell the emotion that he was going through in this, because he's got 300 police officers that depend on him, and he's having to tell them one of your brothers is wrong, and we're going to have to punish him for being wrong. And so it was tough. And in that first month, I really didn't have time to think about Keith Summey daddy, Keith Summey man, Keith Summey husband. It was more Keith Summey mayor, and do what's right, not only for yourself, but for the people of the city of North Charleston.
And now there's obviously political talk about your reelection. This may play into it. I'm wondering, where are you emotionally with that?
I can handle that. Again, what's that song that's all right now? I've learned my lesson well. Can't please everyone, so you gotta please yourself. I know that I have attempted to do that which is right for all people. I know that I have a heart for all people. And I like to see us work together to accomplish things. I believe at the end of the day, the majority of the people in the city of North Charleston appreciate the way we handle the situation. They appreciate the growth that we've had going on, the new jobs we've been able to bring in, quality of life issues that have improved. We've still got a lot of work to do, and I'm up to still doing some work.
And I hate to talk about this, but how would you work with, because they've asked this a lot, how would you work with the community as well as the North Charleston Police Department and the Black Lives Matter group to make certain that there is peace here?
Well, quite honestly, the Black Lives Matter group came in with a totally wrong approach.
Yeah.
I'm always have been willing to sit down and talk with people who come to me in a rational manner. I don't respond to threats well at all, and I don't respond to trying to agitate folks. Their goal was not to keep peace, in my estimation. Their goal was to stir. We had a lot of folks coming in from out of town.
Right.
And you'll see, if you notice, every time I talked to the media, it was the national and local media together. I didn't give any of the national media one-on-ones, and I didn't give the local media one-on-one. My job was to keep peace in my city, and that's what we worked on a daily basis. And when we had the first press conference where I announced about what the charge was going to be, the young man for Black Lives Matter got very vocal, making noise. What did I do? Conference is over. You know, show me respect and I'll answer your questions. But don't tell me what I've got to do. It's more like, tell me we can work together. And to date, that has not transpired. I'd much rather work within the individual communities that are majority minority, and work with those individuals that truly want to see change in their neighborhoods. You know, we've got an issue. When I spoke at the church this past Sunday, it wasn't about politics. It was about how do we heal what's going on in our community today. And it goes well beyond the police officer shooting. How many young men, not North Charleston, our actual homicides are down this year. But if you look at what's occurring over the Tri-County area, and even now the surrounding rural counties, how many young men and women are dying needlessly? And government doesn't heal that. It takes the community, it takes the church, and it takes the family, and then government kicks in and helps. Collaboratively, we can do so much more. And that was what I was talking with about those folks. And then the pastor, when he preached that sermon about doing good instead of evil, it just flowed together. I stayed for the whole service. It was a wonderful experience. And sometimes I think in life, it happened to me 21 years ago when I was running the first time. I went to a church and the sermon I felt was directed at me. That for some reason it touched me and it gave me a sense of comfort with myself and comfort with my world. And this service Sunday did the same thing for me. It gave me a sense of comfort that we need to continue trying to do good, but also that we can overcome evil by working together for good.
Speaking of working with folks, let's talk about Mayor Riley. Obviously, go ahead.
My man. Listen, Joe has been an inspiration, not only to folks like me. When I met Joe, I was on the Election Commission.
That's right.
And we're going back 21 and 6 is 27, 3 is 30, and 8 is 38 years ago. He had been mayor 2 years.
That's right.
And I was impressed with him when he was the young mayor, and he matured very well into his role. And I believe that down the road on the pages of history, it will say that Joe Riley was probably not just the best mayor Charleston had ever had, but potentially the best mayor ever to be in this country.
Yeah. And I interviewed him for Quintin's close-ups a week ago, and we talked about Mother Emanuel and unity and Confederate flag, and he was very vibrant then.
Oh yes,
Yeah.
He's still energetic. I think he just thinks at 40 years he's got time to still do some things, teach and do some things that he would like to do. But I can tell you, the city of North Charleston, city of Charleston, Mount Pleasant, all the associated communities around it are better off today because of Joe.
And how would you work with the next mayor? Because that's going to be interesting.
It's going to be interesting, I think, for the city of Charleston to see how they maneuver into a new era.
Yeah.
As you know, it's a strong mayor, weak council form of government. But if it follows, I hope it doesn't follow the history of North Charleston.
Okay.
When the first mayor was elected after, John Bourne was the first mayor for 19 years, and then Bobby Conner came on board, and they had just increased from 6 to 10 council members. And the city council, sort of spread their wings a little bit to get more involved and more in control, and it created havoc. So I'm hoping that the city council will understand that you've got a new person, a different personality. Things are going to change. You're there to help guide, and I think if that occurs, they won't have the ruckus we had in North Charleston. And I hope that for them, because it was not pleasant having to take that over when I became mayor.
1994.
So it's, I can tell you, Joe has done everything in his power to leave it ready to take over.
And I think you've done the same thing for North Charleston.
I have worked at it. We've tried to put ourselves in a position that we continue to move forward. Quintin, at the end of the day, somebody recently asked me how I wanted to be remembered.
Okay.
And I told him that on my tombstone, I wanted to say that he left it better than he found it. And that should be the goal of all of us.
Yes.
The things that we do in life, if we make it better than it was when we got here, I think somebody up there is going to smile down at us and say, well done.
There you go. Well, Mayor Keith Summey, it's always good talking to you.
Always a pleasure, my friend.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
God bless you.
Likewise.